Hey all, Bhaskar here. It's been a challenging week. This week I recently lost a dear friend who was in palliative care and just passed away recently. And also I just taught a class for the elderly where one of the students also lost a dear friend who was in palliative care. And it's also been a week where I've known a lot of friends who have been suffering from shoulder injuries and hip replacements and all kinds of challenges like this. So this video is really about this subject and theme of suffering. Now, I want to bring to attention the teachings of someone called Gautama Siddhartha, who was later called the Buddha. And the way I've understood from spending time in reading the works of Gautama Siddhartha, I really can't see the difference between Siddhartha and someone like Einstein. To me, they're both geniuses. Except Einstein did experiments, explorations theoretically in the external world, and the Buddha did the same experiments but internally, using very rigorous techniques. So they're both geniuses. One is external, one is internal. So the fact that the Buddha came from India with a Hindu background is as relevant as Einstein coming from Germany with a Jewish background, and it's totally irrelevant. And Buddhism to me is as absurd as Einsteinism. Another subject for another matter. Nevertheless, Gautama Siddhartha, the Buddha, came with the understanding of what's called the Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth is, in life there is suffering, or called Dukkha. And I've given you examples of this. You know, when you're born, this first rush of air in the lungs might cause pain and the baby starts to cry. Then there's physical aches and pains. Then there's mental aches and pains, you know, heartbreak and job loss and all kinds of problems like this where wanted things don't happen, unwanted things happen. So there is suffering in life. That's the first noble truth. If there was only one noble truth, it would be a very depressing situation indeed. But luckily there are four noble truths. The second one goes on to say that there is a cause for the suffering. The third noble truth is there is a way to eradicate the cause of the suffering. And the fourth noble truth is when the cause is eradicated, the suffering goes away. So in this field of suffering, there are three things that start to become clear when we quieten the mind down and really observe what's happening in this reality. So let's look at experiential observation. What do we really experience? I was in this talk given by this wonderful teacher called Jiddu Sadhguru. And it was a huge audience, maybe 1,000 or so people. I was fortunate to be in the front. And he came on stage and he looked around and he asked the question, do you see me? Do you hear me? And we all said, yes, yes, we see you, we hear you. And then he leans in and says, but do you really see me and hear me? And we're all going, yes, yes, see you, hear you, perfectly fine. And then he goes on to say, what you call seeing is really sensations that your optical nerves are picking up in the back of your retina. The image gets inverted and your brain translates it as seeing, you know, basic high school stuff. So the actual seeing is happening inside this mind-body structure. Hearing is happening inside the mind-body structure. Tasting inside the mind-body structure. Scent, smelling inside mind-body structure. Touch, feel inside mind-body structure. Emotions inside mind-body structure. Thoughts inside mind-body structure. That's all we've ever experienced. And it's always only ever happened inside this mind-body structure. And he went on to say, for all you know, there could be nothing out there. We all went, whoa, what an introduction. But just to say, when we talk about experience, it can only happen inside this mind-body structure. So what we call knowing is really much more external, and that knowing is what's called inferred understanding. So by reading, by listening to somebody, or by seeing something, you have the information, and then using your gray matter, you discern, you think about it if it makes sense. But the real understanding at an experiential level can only happen in this mind-body structure. So it'll serve us well to kind of really hang out what's happening inside this mind-body, and that's really the foundation of meditation or mindfulness practice. And when we hang out with this mind-body structure, certain things become clear. First thing that becomes clear is what's called Anicca or impermanence. In this mind-body structure, when you sit still and observe, we start to notice that everything is changing. I mean, we know this in theory, of course, you know, we were once a little baby and then we become bigger and bigger and bigger. This is not happening in a staccato sort of a way. This change happening all the time. So it's so imperceptible that it seems to be stable, but the physical structure is really changing all the time. And everything else, the thoughts, the emotions that we experience, all the sensations that come and go, they're all impermanent. So once we understand that this physical structure is not really a noun, a set physical object, it's more like a verb that's constantly interacting. The physiology, psychology, and biosphere are constantly doing a dance together. It's actually a verb, a happening. As a social convenience, we call it a noun, but really, it's a verb. So then when we realize that, the second thing that we realize is what's called anatta, which means no I. There's nothing stable long enough to say, that's I. As soon as you point to it, poof, it changes. That's the nature of impermanence. And then the third thing starts to become clear, the nature, the foundations of dukkha, or suffering. Oh, so this is how suffering works. Expecting the impermanent to be permanent, or identifying with the impermanent, is the source of my suffering. When something wonderful happens, I want it to be permanent. The anxiety, the anxiousness of grabbing hold of that, something which is bound to be impermanent. Or something unpleasant happens and you project it as something being eternal, when it's actually changing very soon. So expecting that changing to be permanent is the source of the suffering. So I hope this little video gives some insights into how the mechanics of suffering works. And when we realize that things are changing all the time, perhaps it gives us the opportunity to hold things a little bit loosely and treat things as much more precious, because everything is changing and all that we have now is going to pass. So may we all appreciate it and make best use of it. Much love. Hey, thanks for watching. It's so cool that I can just sit here in my front porch and share these ideas with virtually anywhere in the world. So 2 thumbs up to technology. I hope that the sharing was of benefit to you in some way. I also want to quickly mention that very soon I'll be offering a retreat with my dear friend Kataria Fine, who is a profound human being and a shamanic healer. The retreat is called the Yogi and the Shaman, and it's a Dana retreat, anonymous contribution based, so it's a retreat that everybody can come to, and the details will be down here somewhere. So please spread the love, and I hope to see you at the retreat very soon. Stay blessed.